New Brandon Aiyuk to Steeler hints have dropped, but I don't know if it's real or fake news. Also, why is Paul Skenes being brought up when talking about Kenny Pickett's career in Pittsburgh? All that and more, Big Deke News. Apparently, Brandon Aiyuk liked a post from the Steelers' official Instagram page yesterday. I don't know if this is real or fake. It was put out there by, I think, a legit NFL source. It's not a legit NFL source in that it's not from ESPN, NFL Network, or Adam Schefter or anything like that. But I think it is a Twitter account that does post and repost legit NFL news. So you guys let me know if this is real or fake news. Is it just a fake screenshot? Is it photoshopped? Or did he actually like it? I don't know. I have no clue. If he did, then yeah, I think it is a sign. It's a hint in the direction of Aiyuk potentially coming here, or at least that it is. There's confirmation that the Steelers are one of his top 3 teams. But then if it's fake, I don't know. It's whatever. Like, Aiyuk to the Steelers still could very well happen. So nothing really groundbreaking here. But again, we are getting closer and closer to training camp. And I don't think this is something the 49ers are going to want to deal with. You have Mark Caboli suggesting that the Steelers could, if they really want Aiyuk, they could give up some players in a trade package, like an Alex Highsmith or a Dan Moore Jr., which I'm not the biggest fan of, at least when you're talking about trading Alex Highsmith. He said on 93.7 The Fan yesterday, it's all in the 49ers' court, to be honest with you. Why would you get rid of him right now at $14 million if you're not going to make your team instantly better? That's a fair point. Not going to front. That's a fair point. So the only way you make your team instantly better is you trade a player for player, right? Player for player trades don't really happen a ton in the NFL right now. They would want something to help them this year. And what do the Steelers have? I mean, just hypothetically speaking, to offer them to make them better. Highsmith is the one guy that would sort of be interesting. A pass rusher that they need, as in the 49ers. Maybe throw Dan Moore Jr. in there. Maybe you go that route. I don't like that route. I don't think they would do that route. It's a fair point in that we're past the draft, and draft picks don't really help the 49ers out right now for this year. And the 49ers, really good team. They're going to be trying to compete for a Super Bowl, and not having Brandon Aiyuk on the roster and just having a draft pick doesn't help them this year. But you know what else doesn't help them this year is having a disgruntled Brandon Aiyuk in your locker room. So that's the thing. That's the give and take. Like, yes, the 49ers have leverage. Aiyuk does have some leverage. I think the 49ers do have more leverage because if Aiyuk doesn't show up, they could fine him and everything. But do you want Aiyuk showing up and being disgruntled and kind of tanking your team from the inside? No, you don't want that either. So, yeah, there's this back and forth is who's going to budge first. And obviously, Aiyuk requested the trade. Like, that is out there. Niners have said again that they don't want to trade him. But you got to think the more that time goes and Aiyuk is not signed to the 49ers on a contract extension, that he's going to be out of there. I expect him to be out of there. I'm sticking with my initial take from a month or two ago that he will not be a San Francisco 49er. There's just been way too many things happening this offseason. So what team does he go to? That's the next question, and I do think the Steelers are going to be in the mix. What's going to be the compensation? I do not want to give up Alex Highsmith. I think a draft pick works for me. Anything as high as a second-round pick. TG was talking on the podcast that Aiyuk might go for scraps now, maybe even a 5th or a 6th round pick. I would love that. If it's a 5th or 6th round pick, we should have been on that call already. We should have been making that offer, a 5th and a 6th and maybe a Calvin Austin. If they want a player, you could throw in a Calvin Austin or even a Dan Moore Jr. I'd be willing to throw in at this point. I still would like Dan Moore around for this training camp period and in preseason to see what happens with the O-line and how Fautanu looks and just in case there's any injuries. But if it takes a 5th or a 6th round pick and Dan Moore Jr. to get Brandon Aiyuk here, I'm all for it. Although I don't know what use the Niners would have for Dan Moore right now with them having Trent Williams. I don't know who their right tackle is, but I don't even know if Dan Moore would be starting for them at all this year or getting significant snaps. He'd probably take on the role that we expect him to take on at some point here in the near future, and that's being the swing tackle or the backup left and right tackle. But yeah, not a fan of trading Highsmith because I think having Highsmith with a TJ Watt helps us more this year than adding a Brandon Aiyuk and not having Highsmith. Now, it could be different if Nick Herbig balls out and gets, 7 or 8 sacks, and we could tell that he's really emerging. Maybe it's a different story next offseason, but for this offseason and heading into 2024, I'd rather have Alex Highsmith with a TJ Watt. Like, that duo has the potential of being the best Steelers edge rush duo in the organization's history, and I don't want to miss out on that, especially since we still got pieces on offense. We want a wide receiver too, a Brandon Aiyuk, a Davante Adams. Davante Adams is getting floated out there. And if we trade for Davante Adams, he's definitely not going to be wide receiver too. But those type of dudes would really help the offense. It's something we're talking about as close to a need. It kind of is. But who's to say that any of these other guys on this team won't emerge either? With us having the starting point of Pickens as wide receiver 1, and then that mix of Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson, Quez Watkins, Calvin Austin, Pat Freiermuth at tight end, and then obviously the stalwart we got at running back with Cordell Patterson, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. We got weapons on offense. We can win games. Russell Wilson can make that work, and with our new improved offensive line. If we don't have Highsmith and then we're relying on Nick Herbig after just his rookie year, I'd rather not be in that scenario. I can much more deal with this offense with what it is as opposed to not having Highsmith there with a TJ Watt. But, man, Davante Adams, his name's getting thrown out there too. His name's being thrown out there too. I know it was talked about earlier in the offseason, but also something to consider. And I guess the reason I'm bringing his name up is because I'm watching that receiver documentary on Netflix, and that dude wants to win. He's not happy with how things have turned out there in Oakland. Or not Oakland anymore, Las Vegas. First he goes there because he wants to play with his buddy from college and Derek Carr. They trade Carr in Davante's first year there. Or not trade him. They end up benching him the last couple games, and then they trade him up out of there last offseason. And then he's got to deal with the combination of Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell. Did they have another quarterback playing for them last year? They fired Josh McDaniels middle of the season. Antonio Pierce has a strong finish as an interim head coach in 2023. They rehire him, but they didn't figure out the quarterback situation. They're going to be relying on Gardner Minshew or O'Connell again, and Davante Adams is one of the best receivers in the league. And I'm sure he is looking across the NFL landscape and seeing himself being on a different team and thinking, there's some greener pastures over there. Raiders, man, dysfunctional organization, and obviously they don't have the quarterback that Davante Adams wanted when he went down there anymore, Derek Carr. So, he's probably thinking, what am I doing here? This isn't a winning organization. There's a ton of dysfunction, uncertainty at quarterback. I got my money. I want to win games. So, you know what? If we're talking about potentially trading for Aiyuk and paying him $25-26 million, would it be out of question to just trade for Davante Adams and take on his contract? I know I think $30 million. It's either close to $30 million or it's at $30 million. Davante Adams is better than Brandon Aiyuk. I know he's a little bit older, but he's proven already that he can be the top dog. He could be the alpha. Stand alone. Whereas with Brandon Aiyuk, he's been, I think we can all agree, at least a little bit of a product of the 49ers system. We haven't seen him play anywhere else. So that would be a question mark for whatever team trades for him. Can you be the alpha? Can you be a wide receiver 1? Can you stand alone? Luckily here in Pittsburgh, he wouldn't have to stand alone because we got Pickens. But Davante Adams has arguably been the best receiver in the league over the last 5 years. From a year in and year out basis, no matter what quarterback. Aaron Rodgers going down to the Raiders with Derek Carr and those other couple guys that they've had last year. Davante Adams is legit, and he wants to win, dude. I'm telling you, I wouldn't be surprised. I think he's gonna. I haven't heard anything about him wanting out this offseason, like at any point this offseason, right? Heading into 2024. But I wouldn't be surprised if Raiders are sitting there 1-3, 0-4, whatever, that you're hearing some Davante Adams trade talk. So if we don't make a move by when the regular season starts, Davante Adams trade could be in the mix. Who knows? Last thing I wanted to talk about for today's show. I hinted at it in the intro. Paul Skenes and Kenny Pickett being discussed are in the same conversation when bringing up guys that were supposed to be the franchise here in Pittsburgh for their respective sports. You have Doug Whaley. Also, we had Kaboli talking on 93.7 The Fan, and I think Doug Whaley was on 93.7 The Fan. Yes, he was. And was talking about how the Pirates handled Skenes and how the Steelers handled Pickett, and how the Pirates actually deserve a lot more credit for how Skenes has been handled thus far compared to what the Steelers did with Pickett. He says this is maybe the one time you might say the Pirates front office really got it right, and the Steelers front office didn't really have a plan. Everything that the Pirates did with Skenes led him to what he did last night. I think he's talking about starting in the All-Star game. Now, Skenes had to actually go out there and perform, but they put the plan in place, not rushing him, making sure he was doing the right thing. That even includes, he noted, pulling Skenes early out of a potential no-hitter. That fit in their plan. They have visions for Skenes compared to what the Steelers had. Oh, we'll have a competition at camp. I don't think that was a competition. No, we're just going to wait and throw Pickett out there in the middle of a game. That just didn't seem like a plan. That was a knee-jerk reaction. That's what the difference is. So I see where he's coming from here, but I'm actually not going to be able to agree fully on this one. This is where I guess maybe me and you Pickett haters out there can unite and agree on something when it comes to Kenny Pickett, because the thought of the Steelers not having a plan for Pickett and just throwing him out there willy-nilly in his rookie season, like, I don't agree with. I really don't, because one, he came into the league as the most pro-ready quarterback prospect coming out of that draft. And then you add to the fact we started him out as the third stringer. We did have him compete with Mason and Mitch throughout the offseason and in training camp and in preseason. Like, we didn't start him out there week one because that's something I was calling for, in fact. So if I want to be honest and look back on what my takes were at that time, I want to pick it to start week one. So I can't sit here and say, like, yeah, the Steelers, they should have had Pickett sit a whole year. They should have at least had him sit, like, through half the season and made sure he was ready and everything, made sure he earned it. No, like, I was ready to start him week one because I looked at Mitch Trubisky and what Pickett did throughout that offseason and in the preseason games. I'm like, bro, Pickett's the guy you drafted in the first round. I don't think there's much difference between a Pickett and a Trubisky at this point. Throw Pickett out there. At least he's got the upside, and the more games, the more reps that he gets should help in his development, right? That should get his development more on a faster track. And I don't think anything that's going to be thrown at him week one or anything in the regular season in his rookie year is going to be too much for him to handle. Yeah, he might have some mistakes. He might have some hiccups. But I believe in the dude. I think he'd be able to overcome any adversity. And if he is the most pro-ready prospect in this QB class, then, like, what are we waiting for? So I can't flip up. I can't switch my take there and be like, oh, man, the Steelers should have waited. No, I actually still stand by, like, I wish Pickett would have started week one. He would have got more reps under his belt. Maybe we win an extra game that season and we make the playoffs because Pickett is in there before Mitch. Because that's the other thing, like, we got to see Mitch for those first 3.5 games in 2022, and Mitch really wasn't doing too much. He wasn't killing us, but he wasn't going out of his way to win games or anything like that. We were sitting there, I think it was 1-2 or 1-3. So, yeah, that was a good time, I thought, to put Pickett in. It's like, why not? He can't be doing any worse than Mitch Trubisky, and I didn't think he did either. And then you obviously saw in the second half of the season, Pickett was a big part of why we went 7-2 and almost made the playoffs. So I can't really agree with this completely. Like, I guess you do give the Pirates some credit here in how they're handling Skenes. But it almost just seems like how the Pirates are handling Skenes has just been no-brainer moves along the way. Skenes was like throwing a .9 ERA in AAA. So it's like, yeah, no duh. We got to get this dude up here sooner rather than later. If anything, there's an argument to be made that they took a week or two too long. They could have gotten Skenes up here earlier. And then pulling him from games early that he's throwing no-hitters in. Yeah, I mean, I'm not the baseball expert. I posed the question out on Twitter, just wondering, are the Pirates doing the right thing, actually? Because I'm not really familiar in just baseball and, like, prodigy pitchers and how they should be handled. And a lot of you guys said the Pirates are actually doing the right thing. So I guess we can give them credit, but I also think Skenes is a generational talent. It's almost like the Chargers drafting Justin Herbert. Even though their organization is a little incompetent, Justin Herbert's making things happen. Because you can even see with Skenes, he's not getting any run support. He's not getting much run support from the bats. And a lot of people have argued the Pirates coaches really haven't been up to snuff either. Shelton and even some of the position coaches. But Skenes is that good that he's overcoming all of it whenever he's out there starting. That, yeah, literally in 11 games already, like 11 games in his rookie season, he's only played in 11 games in the MLB. That's it. He's already declared the starter for the All-Star game. He's considered by some the best pitcher in the league already. Like, he's just that good. So I don't think the Pirates deserve crazy amounts of credit. I think they can get some credit for sure. And I just don't know if it relates perfectly to the Pickett situation here in Pittsburgh, though. I don't think it's a one-to-one. It's an apples-to-apples comparison here because, yeah, I think the Steelers were fine in how they handled Pickett early. Maybe you could argue, and I do argue this, they didn't give Pickett the best surroundings. And that's almost like in the Pirates scenario, yeah, we're not giving the Skenes the best of run support or anything like that. Like maybe Skenes doesn't have the best of surroundings, but I think he's that generational. Whereas Pickett, based off the first 2 years here, yeah, maybe wasn't as generational as I thought he could be. It was more, his pro success would be more based off development. Like he didn't come into the league like a Justin Herbert and set the world on fire. And that's fine. And that's completely fine. Not every quarterback has the same path. Not every NFL player has the same path. But I don't think we set Pickett up for great development by having Matt Canada here and just some of the other stuff he was dealing with. Now, injuries didn't help him either. His play, especially in his second year, didn't help him either. But I just thought it was an interesting take, comparing the Pirates and handling Skenes to the Steelers and how they handled Kenny Pickett, both in their young careers here in Pittsburgh. I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison. No, I can't go that far. No, I don't really agree with this fully. I see where he's coming from, though, but no. I don't think the Steelers did Pickett wrong in putting him out there the way they did in his rookie season, or even how they handled him in his rookie season throughout the offseason and training camp and in the preseason and everything. No. If you want to talk about having Canada there, though, that's a different story. Definitely. I don't think the Steelers did right by Pickett there. But let me know your thoughts on the topics discussed today. Brandon Aiyuk, Davante Adams being thrown into the mix as a potential trade target for the Steelers. Like, if we're talking Aiyuk, why not talk Davante Adams? And then the Pickett and Skenes comparison. Let me know what you think about that. Stay chilling. Enjoy the weekend. Peace.